afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's panel discussion on a topic that is rapidly transforming the landscape of business and technology, how collaboration through open and shared data is creating new economic and social value. My name is Ed Evans. I'll be chairing the panel today. I am a senior consultant at the ODI, and I'm the current chair of the British Computer Society DMSG, that's a data management specialist group. I'm joined today by Melissa Tallack from Northumbrian Water and the Stream Consortium, Yiu-Shing Pang, Open Data Manager from UK Power Networks, and my colleague Tara Lee, Senior Consultant at the ODI. And they will introduce themselves in a moment with a summary of insights of open and shared data. First of all, a little housekeeping. We are recording the session and we'll make it available following the webinar. We'll be muting mics, but we welcome your questions. Please post them in the Q&A section so that they can be addressed to the panel. I'd like to introduce the two host organizations for this webinar, a collaborative first in itself between the BCS, Data Management Specialist Group, part of the British Computer Society. Is dedicated to advancing data practice across all sectors. The group provides a forum for data professionals to share knowledge, develop their skills, and promote best practice. And if we can have that slide, please. BCS, yeah, there you go. Making IT good for society. So yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, but the BCS Data Management Specialist Group, BCSD-MSG. And then we're also hosted by the Open Data Institute, the ODI, a global leader in the open data movement, co-founded by Sir Tim Berners-Lee and Sir Nigel Shadbolt. The ODI works with companies and governments to build an open and trustworthy data ecosystem, and Tara will talk more about the ODI in a moment. So from each of these organizations, you'll find a comprehensive store of research, resources, tools freely available to anyone who's interested in developing their skills and knowledge in data and data practice, best access through the websites of the respective organizations. So just to introduce the topic today, as we know, data has become one of the most valuable assets in any organization. We're producing and collecting data at an unprecedented rate from every transaction and from more and more devices. However, the true power of data is unleashed not when it's stored in, hoarded in silos, but when it's shared and made open. And open and shared data fosters collaboration, innovation, and efficiency. And by breaking down the barriers that traditionally isolate data within departments or organizations, we can discover new insights, drive innovation, and create more efficient and effective operations. And we'll hear some great examples of that this afternoon. And of course, without data, there's no AI. Artificial intelligence, particularly machine learning models, benefit immensely from access to large data sets. The effectiveness of AI algorithms improves significantly with more data, allowing for better accuracy and insights. In fact, large language models like ChatGPT, for example, were built from vast amounts of open data, and this demonstrates the immense potential of data sharing in driving technological advancements. But beyond individual organizations, open and shared data can address sector-wide challenges that no single entity can tackle alone. Across industries, open data initiatives can contribute to addressing global challenges, such as climate change, public health crises, and economic inequality. And whilst the potential for creating value through open and shared data is immense, it's not without its challenges. Issues such as data privacy, security, and governance must be addressed to ensure that data is used ethically and responsibly. And furthermore, the cultural shift towards openness requires strong leadership and a commitment to collaboration across the entire organization. So are the regulators driving this change? In electricity and water sectors, the regulators require companies to demonstrate a commitment to open data. In this space, open data is recognized as essential for innovation, delivering better services to customers, improving the environment, and achieving net zero. But to help us unpick those opportunities and challenges, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts who bring a wealth of knowledge and experience. I'm going to ask each one in turn to introduce themselves and provide us with their insights on the topic, and then we'll follow that up with a panel discussion, including questions posted in the Q&A. So first of all, it's my pleasure to welcome Yiu-Shing from UK Power Networks.
Thank you. I think this is where I take over the screen. So just bear
Yes.
with me. So hopefully you can all see that.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So I'm Yiu-Shing, and I manage the open data program at UK Power Networks. And you'll be pleased there are only 9 slides. Next slide. So who are we? We are a distribution network operator, or we're fast becoming a distribution system operator, which is reflecting the direction in which electricity is traveling from traditionally a generator to your home. Now it's home sending electricity back up the network. So it's all getting a bit complicated. And that's probably why that's one of the reasons behind open data. So we serve the bottom right-hand side corner of the country. And you can see all the other companies that we work with in the country. So why are we doing it? The net zero transition, everything's getting faster. This is increasingly digitalized world that we are living in. There are EVs coming on board. There are heat pumps connecting. And the dates I've highlighted 2035. I did check that before I joined last week. It was 2030, and then they knocked it back to 2035, I think. But if you think like an EV, you know, a 2-ton vehicle that has a range of 150 plus miles, that's a lot of juice. And these things are connecting to the network. Sometimes we don't have visibility of it, but they consume 4 to 8 times the power of a house on a street. So all these variables are driving that change for data, digitalization, and open data. So my team, we offer 2 things: data, and we try to, and that's consumable in API. You can download it in Excel, you can view it on the portal, you can take it away. It's open license, you can do whatever you want with it. But for the people like my parents who aren't too savvy with data, we build maps and dashboards to help them understand it. So I'll just rattle through to the data. So as you expect, we're an electricity network company. So we tell people where our substations are, transformers, our overhead network. Crucially, we don't show our underground network because of security reasons. The overhead network you can see, so we sort of rationalize that. We tell people what our assets are doing, who's due to connect, what the connection queues are looking like. When we talk about net zero transition, you've seen in the press where we talk about where they talk about how people can't connect until a certain year. So we try to provide visibility of that on our assets. Crucially, we tell people as well interruptions. We are a power company. You only really talk to us either you need a connection or the power's gone out. So we start to give people visibility of where the power cuts are, not just on a map, but in a data set format. We also give visibility of who's connected to our network. So I've listed some out there. So I'm very proud of this slide because I put 2 GIFs in it because it's better than a picture. So these are just a couple of examples of the maps and dashboards we build. So on the left is our network infrastructure and usage map, or the new map. And that shows UKPN on a map. So you can see that you can zoom in and out. It'll show you where the substations are and give you information about it. On the right-hand side, after you've picked a substation, you click through and it will give you all the information that we've published about that particular substation. So we show you a 5-year forecast of demand, what's connected to it, and a future forecast where we think we'll run out of headroom. So very useful. Now onto the industry collaboration. I've had a quick look through the attendee list and I've spotted a few names I recognize. As I mentioned, we only cover about a quarter of the country. There are other network companies out there who manage the other networks. And we are all banded together to, the regulators given us a direction of open up data to help with net zero transition, and we're all doing that. We do collaborate through the Energy Networks Association, and there are various working groups. There's one for data and digitalization, and we're covering things like licensing and data triage. So I'll talk about licensing. The there's no point you coming to me Yiu-Shing for the data set, but I've told you you can't use it on a Tuesday. But you go to another company and they say you can't use it on a Wednesday. So the idea of licensing is that we all use the same license together. So you can go anywhere in the country and you know what your rights are and terms and conditions are with using that particular data set. Data triage is an interesting one. I will have a different risk tolerance and appetite compared to some of my colleagues. So we're trying to standardize on that as well. Next slide. This is it. It's a very quick presentation, 8 slides. So the key message, Ofgem is driving us in a certain direction, and we're all following. But there are variations to what we do because we are individual corporate entities. We have different risk appetites, but I think that's a good thing. Different companies will do different things and will learn where people fail, but also where people succeed. So it encourages, I hope, fast learning. The open energy data space is very new. It is maturing. So each year is different. So we'll see what opportunities there are in the future. We're already getting really cool use cases of our data, and people are recognizing it's a key enabler of net zero. I'll give you one example of a use case. EV Energy are taking our live power cut data to tell people, their customers, when there's a power cut at home. So I don't know, Ed's got a Tesla. He gets a notification from EV Energy. No, he doesn't have a Tesla, not yet. And he'll say, Ed, don't go home to charge tonight because there's a power cut at home. But that's interesting because it's just UKPN that's done that. And then think about all the other networks in the country. You know, if they open up that data, EV Energy could have coverage across GB. I'll finish with a QR code on the bottom right. So if you want to have a look at our portal, where you can get all that data and those maps and dashboards that I flashed up. And that's me.
Thanks very much, Yiu-Shing. Fascinating insight there. Lots of data being shared and insight into some of the challenges going on there. Melissa, I'd like to introduce Melissa from Northumbrian Water and the Stream Consortium.
Thanks, Ed. So just a little bit about Northumbrian Water. If you're not familiar with it, it's one of the water companies in the UK. Operates in 2 regions, up in the northeast, as the name suggests, Northumbrian Water, and down in the southeast as Essex and Suffolk Water. It provides water and sewerage services to the Northumbrian Water, so the northeast, and water-only services down in Essex and Suffolk. But between those 2 companies, supplying 1.1 billion litres of water every day to both those areas, which, because we're in Olympic times, I thought I'd convert that into Olympic-sized swimming pools. So 440 Olympic swimming pools every day provided of water between those 3 areas. And then also allowed me to put a gratuitous photo of our Great British relay team there. So if you can just move the slide on. So I'm going to talk about what's happening in respect of open data in the water sector. And because this webinar is all about collaboration, I'm going to focus on the work of Stream. So Stream, as Ed sort of suggested earlier, is the collaboration between 16 of the major UK water companies, supported by 7 specialist partners, of which the Open Data Institute is a key part. But importantly, observed by 3 of the sector's regulators: the economic regulator Ofwat, its environmental regulator, the Environment Agency, and its consumer body, the Consumer Council for Water. So in total, there's about 100 passionate people involved in Stream, but passionate about doing what? If you can move the slide on. So Stream's vision together is to unlock the power of water data, the potential of water data to the benefit of customers, society, and the environment. And to do that, we're creating data sharing infrastructure for the water sector. And by that, we mean community, data, process, and technology. And by creating that clear framework for sharing data in a consistent and efficient way, Stream's removing the barriers that have historically prevented water companies from opening and sharing data in the past. So it then enables the industry and its stakeholders to work together to deliver insights in the areas of most critical importance. So before I go on to talk more about the detail and history of Stream, I thought it'd be useful to just clarify the regulatory picture in relation to open data in the water sector. So currently, the Environmental Information Regulations from 2004 is the only real regulation in place requiring water companies to publish environmental related data, both reactively, i.e. on request, or proactively. However, that picture is changing. And last June, Ofwat, who's the sector's economic regulator, announced the intention to introduce a licence condition requiring the sector to open up more data, as we've seen happen in the energy sector. So we can expect to see that picture developing over the coming months. If we can just move on to the next slide. So if we go back to Stream, wait for the slide to load. Stream actually started back in spring of 2020. And that was before any talk of license conditions, which gives you some idea of the positive intention that was behind the movement. And so it wasn't driven as a result of a regulatory driver, but more on opportunity, the belief that open data presented an opportunity. And at that time, there was a small group of water companies who were actively exploring the potential of open data. And they came together, and critically, I suppose at that point, the group had a strong sense that open data was probably better done together than individually. And over time, as the group grew in number, as well as confidence that it was the right direction of travel, the group decided to submit a proposal into the Ofwat Water Breakthrough Challenge Fund, which is a strategic innovation fund in the water sector to help drive things forward at pace. And at that point, that was really where Stream was officially had an identity of its own. So, very long story short, we secured funding for discovery and design in May 22. That work was completed between July and December of the same year. We then successfully secured further funding to bring Stream to life the following year. So that work started in August of last year, and by mid-December the same year, we had stood up a minimum viable product, or MVP, and had worked together to coordinate the release of some of the 3 basic data sets. And the point of running that minimum viable product was to test the process end to end, to understand where was the friction in the process, but also to really test what our users wanted from us in terms of a service and a front-end experience. So all that learning from the minimum viable product was incorporated into a second iteration of the framework and the platform, and that went live at the end of April this year. We can go on to the next slide. So we also, during this period of time, we continue to work together to release additional data. And if you go to www.streamwaterdata.co.uk today, you can see where we're at. So from what felt like a pretty slow start back between 2020 and 2022, once we'd got that funding in place, it enabled us to bring specialists on board and been able to move very quickly since then. But we really are just still at the beginning of the story, because it's now all about collaborating with even more people to realise value from the data that we're publishing as a sector. So it's not really so much about where we've been on Stream that matters, but where we go next. We can go on to the next slide, please. Before we go on to sort of the future and how we intend to generate value through collaboration, just a quick word on interoperability, because that's really part of the story which makes Stream perhaps a little bit different. Achieving interoperability is not something that happens by accident, as you probably all know. It has to happen as a deliberate act. And it's really key to unlocking as much value from the data as we can. So it's very much worth the effort focusing on this. Firstly, with 16 individual water companies signed up as members of Stream, we've created the necessary collaborative environment on which we can base the basis of interoperability. We've also established open lines of communication across other organisations and between sectors to make sure we're taking all of the opportunities we can to design in interoperability from the outset. So within the water sector, a bit like Yiu-Shing talked about in the energy sector, Stream members have committed to standardise as far as possible to facilitate interoperability, and that includes how we publish data sets so that we all agree upon to publish data to a common schema and format. And that means for our users, you don't have to go 16 different places and find 16 different versions of notionally the same data. We've agreed to adopt a common metadata standard, so we all describe the data to humans and machines in the same way, using standard recognised terms and descriptions. And we all work together to create common supporting contextual information to accompany any of those data sets. And that also enabled us to be more efficient as a member group. So we're also in the process of establishing a common trust framework too. So there's codified governance, interoperability both within the sector and between sectors. And that's also critical to facilitating that smooth flow of data between different users and sectors. We share and document best practice and
You went on mute, Melissa.
Sorry, I must have hit the space bar then. Sorry, where did you lose me?
From data best practice.
Okay, so we share and document data best practice, and that's underpinned by a strong community ethos and culture, where where members will give what they can and take what they need in terms of support for building that capability within each company and across the sector, and the basis of that being a rising tide lifts all boats. So by doing that, we're able to go further faster, but don't let that fool you into thinking that collaboration can't happen in a fully competitive market, because water companies still have to compete with each other through comparative performance incentives. But there is an advantage to both companies and users alike if we do collaborate on those consistent foundations for open data publication. What a company then chooses to do with that capability is where the competition comes in. So if we move on to the last slide. So as we mentioned earlier, the next chapter, excuse me, we're in the next chapter of Stream, or in the operational phase. And we've started to focus very much on delivering value by collaborating with our user community. Sorry, the formatting on that slide looks like it might have gone a bit awry. Governance shouldn't be that. It's important, but it shouldn't be like that big. This diagram does show 4 pillars that we use to retain a focus on the things that are important to enable value to be delivered. And objectives and key results are being set, agreed by the Stream Steering Group at the moment, supported by 2 advisory groups on what these objectives and key results should be for each of these pillars. So having cut our teeth late last year on publishing simple data sets, we now focus on using use cases as a reason to publish data. So we aim to publish with a purpose in mind. So we've got a number of ways we do that. So going back to the environmental information regulations, we use that as a clue historic requests as a clue to what people are interested in, what people want to do with sector data. But we also build and engage with a community of users to understand who is interested in the data, what ideas have they got about how value can be created. And we've recently published our use case backlog as an open data set itself on the Stream platform. And all of our registered community members can review and contribute to that, but everyone else can see it. So we capture use cases using a standard template, which captures the value hypothesis, the problem statement, the objective, who the stakeholders are, what the data we think might be needed, and any risks that we might know about at that stage. We also draw an ecosystem map using a template from the Open Data Institute of the different actors, how value is exchanged between those actors and the relationships between them. We then undertake a simple scoring mechanism and that helps to prioritise them relative to one another. And we use an advisory group which is made up of sector representatives and non-sector representatives to help with that process, and ultimately make a recommendation to the steering group to schedule in and release data around that use case. Our preference then is to get to know people who want to generate value from our data so that we can support them to do so and understand how and where value is being created for our customers, society and the environment.
Thanks very much, Melissa. Fantastic explanation of the Stream Consortium. Achieved so much in just a few years to go from a startup to where it is today. Thank you. So next I'd like to welcome Tara. Tara from the ODI will explain about the ODI and some of the fundamental concepts underpinning open and shared data. So thank you, Tara. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ed. And as Ed has mentioned, I'm Tara Lee. I'm a senior consultant at the ODI. So my role is around leading projects in a myriad of sectors, including utilities, helping organizations in their open data journeys. So I've been working quite extensively on some sector transformation projects and designing and leading projects aimed to improve the volume and value of open data and data innovation. So a little bit of an introduction to the ODI and what we do. We were set up 12 years ago by Sir Nigel Shadbolt, who's the principal of Jesus College, Oxford, and a professor in AI, and Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who was the founder of the World Wide Web, amongst other many achievements. And we're a non-profit, non-partisan institute. So we like to play an independent role in helping the world open up more data and get data to work for everyone. So our vision and our mission is, as you can see on the screen here, we want to create a world where data works for everyone, where corporate interests are balanced with individual rights, and where access to data is equitable and fair, and where data is being used responsibly and trustworthily. And to achieve this vision, we work towards building an open, trustworthy data ecosystem. And we work with almost everyone, I would say. So we work with organizations across the public, private, and third sectors and help leaders understand the value of data. And we provide research, consulting, and learning services that help organizations to improve their data practices. And we influence governments through our public policy work. And we convene organizations and provide safe spaces to think about data and how we can be better with data. And this is just a sample of the organizations that we've worked with around the world. As you can see, though, we work across a very broad landscape. So it includes governments, regulators, corporates, charities, as well as utilities. And this nice graphic here, it's not a GIF, so I can't compete with Yiu-Shing there, but hopefully it's enjoyable to look at. And this reflects our 5-year strategy, which we're into the second year of now. And as mentioned, we are mission driven with a vision of a world where data works for everyone. And our ambitions over this 5-year period include supporting the creation of strong data infrastructure to build healthy data ecosystems with open data as the foundation. We want to help build trust in data to create value and recognize the need for independent bodies in the ecosystem to enable this. We want to reduce harms that can occur through the use or restriction of data and embedding diversity, equity, inclusion in all that we do. And we want to support as many people as possible to develop the data skills and knowledge that are essential to unlocking the potential of data. And this is our theory of change. So what we've seen over the years is that there are 2 overarching blockers to sharing or opening data to realize its value for everyone. There's a danger that unaddressed fears, which can arise from legitimate concerns, such as who has access to data and how it might be used, those prevent us from realizing its full benefits. So data might not be collected or used to the extent that it could be. Individuals might withdraw consent, which can lead to data that's biased and misleading. And we call this scenario the data wasteland, because we end up lacking the data that could support data users to flourish. And we think that data is an incredibly useful commodity and that we can all benefit when it's used well. So we advocate for and support putting in place practices that ensure the way that data is collected and used is trustworthy and just. So these can include building in ethical considerations to data collection, management, and use, ensuring that there's equity around who accesses, uses, and benefits from data, and engaging widely with people in organizations who are affected. There's also a danger that in some places, organizations hoard data. They may use inappropriate business or funding models for data that limits the value that we as a society can get from it. And here value is concentrated in data monopolies, which increase inequality. We're more exposed to negative side effects, such as privacy and security risks. And we call this scenario the data oil field, because data is treated like oil. Its value is only being realized by a few organizations, and there are negative side effects from its use that affect society as a whole. And we think the benefits of data should be felt more widely in societies and economies. We also think that organizations that hoard data are not going to be sustainable in the long term. So we advocate and support applying an open culture to the 3 pillars of how data is used within our economies. A data infrastructure that's open as possible, data literacy and capability for all, and open innovation. And there are 3 activities that create impact from data. So first of all, the stewarding of that data, collecting it, maintaining it, and sharing it. Then there's the creating information from that data, and that might be in the form of products and services, analyses, insights, or stories and visualizations, and then deciding what to do. So being informed by information from multiple sources along with experience and understanding. Each of these activities can be carried out by individuals, companies, communities, and governments. And we want those who steward data and those who create information from this data to act in ways that lead to the best social and economic outcomes for everyone. So in our theory of change, we call this goal the data farmland. And importantly, what I'm not suggesting is that we believe all data should be open. And I hope I'm not teaching anyone to suck eggs on this call, but by open, I mean data that anyone can access, use, and share. So we recognize that some data must remain closed for data protection or commercial sensitivities or national security, as Yiu-Shing was talking about with the underground infrastructure. An example might be your employment contracts. You only want those to be accessed by you and the company that you work for. And then in some cases, sharing data brings incredible value, but some restrictions might still need to apply. So a good example of this is medical data. I'm sure none of us want our personal medical details to be available for all to see, but we do want medical researchers to have the data they need to create those new diagnostic tools, treatments, and cures to help us if we fall ill. And we need to put data sharing agreements in place in those instances. We might need to do some work to the data to protect individuals from being identified. And there might need to be authentications or trusted research environments or some other mitigations that might be needed to share the data and allow it to be used securely by different parties. And then there's data that can be made open for anyone to access and use to create greater and new value from it. We encourage data holders and stewards to consider their data as presumed open. So that's to consider if there are any reasons it can't be made open or any adjustments that need to be made to it to ensure that it's safe and responsible to do so, rather than thinking the other way around where they consider why data should be made open. And our goal at the ODI is to support data holders to collect, maintain, and share data in a safe, responsible, and ethical way so that the data can work for everyone. And I will pass back to my colleague, Ed.
Thanks very much, Tara. The data spectrum is such a great, relatively simple way of explaining how you don't need to share all your data and that you can pick and choose the data that's being shared. It's not obvious really to people that there's value to be generated from open and shared data. And I wanted to get the panelists to open the mics now, and I've got a couple of questions to kick us off there. I'll start with Melissa. What prompted you to start on the journey? I mentioned the regulators in my introduction, but were you already thinking about open data?
Yeah, there was probably about 8 water companies at the time. So I was working in Anglian Water as head of data and digital services there at the time, and we were certainly exploring the value of open data because we've gone through a process of internally of enabling other people within the sort of democratizing effectively the job of data and analytics within the organization. So it was a job of many rather than a few, you know, and becoming a more of a core competency within the organization. And the next natural extension to that is like, well, what if we put our data in other people's hands who have additional skills and insight and experience that they can bring to these challenges? So we were certainly thinking along those lines. And then there was you know, Northumbrian Water brought the sort of the conversation together. But it was definitely kind of provoked from a position of there's a lot of opportunity potentially, particularly around innovation and collaborating with others to drive innovation through the data that we hold that drove us to kind of get together in the first place. Absolutely.
Very good, very good. Yiu-Shing, was it a similar story in your organisation? Were you already thinking about open data before the regulator knocked on the door?
Yeah, it's not fair for me to lay claim to any kudos because I joined the team. We formed the team in 2021, but the Energy Data Task Force had come out in 2019 with a series of guidance and recommendations for the energy sector. And I think my boss took that and decided to form a team, and then lo and behold, Ofgem, the regulator, sort of codified open data and its requirements. So that, and then we just sort of ran with it. We looked at who was publishing open energy data, spoke with them, we figured things out ourselves, and that was it.
Very good, very good. And when in terms of internally in your organisation, we've got a question from the listeners here. How do you go on about sort of convincing the organisation that it's a good idea to share open data? Yiu-Shing, carry on.
Yeah, it helps that the regulators told us to do it. That's always a big stick. But on the softer side, it's convincing people that, hey, you help me with your data. So you approach, I don't know, Tara owns a particular data set. She owns the system and we're trying to get the data out. But the regulator said we should consider it for publication. We might approach Tara and just convince her of the benefits of it. Instead of someone coming to bug her every day for the data, we'll tell Tara, hey, we can just publish it for you, automate it, and then no one will ever bug you again. So we try and convince people the benefits of opening up their particular data domains.
I'm convinced, Yiu-Shing.
Excellent.
I mean, it's similar in that respect in the water sector. Like mentioned, environment information regulations requests, they are quite numerous and they can be quite laborious, and they might have common patterns to them. So a lot of people at the moment obviously are interested in wastewater data, so storm overflow data, that kind of thing. And so there's an efficiency angle. So that's useful to be able to go and have exactly that conversation Yiu-Shing just outlined there. But also we work to capture the stories of and tell the stories of where things that the industry benefit from now had their roots in someone actually being prepared to open up some data in the first place. So we talk about how innovation is stimulated and supported, you know, by sharing or opening data. So we try and capture those, tell those stories, equip everybody with those stories so they can tell them in their own organisations. But it is a change challenge. It's a people thing. It's not technology that holds you back. It's not the data that holds you back. It's the culture that is the thing that to focus on.
And Tara, feel free to chip in at any point with, I mean, we as the ODI work with a whole range of organisations, and generally they've already, by the time they contact us, they've got their heads around that, do you think, or is that not always the case?
Yes, there's always those who are ready to go full speed ahead.
Yeah.
And then there are others who are very reluctant. And it's, as I said, it's a culture change that has to go on with an organization. And a lot of people are scared of change. And they might have legitimate fears and concerns. They might have fears and concerns that are not sort of founded on any evidence. So it's something that we usually have to work through. So when we do work with organizations to go through this process, even if, as Melissa was saying, even if the CEO had said, yes, we're doing this and has signed off on the work and it's happening, it's the people who are delivering within the organization who need to be on board and see the benefits and the value of doing this. So we never say, you know, in isolation, publish the data. There's a number of different areas that need to be considered, both around the data governance, but also thinking about the sustainability of it, thinking about how you're going to track the value of what you're doing there. Because if you can't track and demonstrate the value of what you're doing, it won't continue going forward. And those people who are reluctant will continue to be reluctant and will probably act as blockers to the progress and innovation that can be made.
Thank you. Yeah, fascinating point you made there about tracking the value, and it leads me to another question. And I'll start with Melissa. I mean, how do you sort of choose which data sets you're going to share? I mean, who's making the call on that? Is it coming from externally, or is it your own internal decision? And how do you reach that conclusion about the data being shared? And how do you know what value is being generated? That's two questions.
Yeah. So from a stream perspective, so when we're thinking about sort of collective open data publication, we have all the stream processes in place, which include a valuation step. And then, but it's more comprehensive, as I outlined earlier. It's risks as well. It's not just about value or opportunity. It's about considering all of the things. So who is anybody ready to use that? Is anybody ready and capable to support that use case? Because it's great having a great idea and publishing data, but if you've got nobody on the other end of that who's capable of then turning that into value, then you're less likely to have value generated. So that's where the ecosystem engagement, you know, working with our community, knowing our community really helps us support them practically. So yeah, the value framework has just been agreed. I believe it's also available up on the Stream portal, so you should be able to find it there. If not, it will be due to be published soon. And you can see how we value use cases. That goes through an advisory group, as I said, that's made up of internal sector representatives, but also external, more importantly, external advisors who give up their time, you know, freely, willingly to support what we're trying to do as an initiative. Each water company seeks to publish data to their own regional priorities too. So it's not an either or, it's and they will have a value framework, which we're hoping will align in some kind of way, but we haven't mandated alignment to a single value framework because each company will value things slightly differently. And so we say, if you don't have anything, you can use the Stream one, but if you have your own, that's also fine. But there's a specific valuation step, and we're encouraging everybody to make their valuation methodology public so people can see how decisions are being made about what data we are or aren't publishing and why.
Very good, very good. Yiu-Shing, is it similar in your organization, similar approach?
You know, so we approach data publication in three ways. A lot of regulated companies have mandated publications or data sets they have to release. So we target, there's a three-pronged approach. So the first prong is retrospective. We're just herding all the data sets we already published all over our website onto a central portal, tying it with an open data license so people know where they stand when they use that data. The second prong is the reactive element. We facilitate data requests inbound to our organization, and we risk assess those data sets that they want, and then we hopefully publish it. And then there's the proactive element where we think this data set might be useful for someone, and we'll go ahead and publish that. In terms of value, people aren't too forthcoming about what they do with the data, but we know it's helping with our connections activity. People can identify a substation that they're interested in connecting to, or an overhead line, and they can start to cost up. Okay, I'm 2 kilometers away from that particular line. It's going to cost me £10,000 per 100 meters, and they can start to build their business case for their connection activity. For UKPN, we're hoping that people are doing their homework before they come and talk to us. So we're saving time and money in terms of human resources to sort of streamline that connection process, but also to increase customer satisfaction. Can't imagine you being too happy if you spent time and money only for UKPN to say, no, you can't connect here, right? So value kind of manifests in that manner too. We do track how many people use our portal. And I think last month we had 9,000 users, and that number keeps growing. I remember when we first started, it was 1,000, 2,000. Makes my performance review quite easy. Just show the numbers going up.
You're collecting the data. Very good. Tara, any thoughts from you on kind of outside of these organisations? How do in your experience, how do organisations prioritise, or are they starting with a particular use case in mind generally?
Yes, I mean, usually, as we've sort of discussed, there's a reason why this is happening. It's not someone wakes up one day and decides, yeah, we're going to open some data. There's some value that they're hoping to gain from it, or they're being regulated to do it. But even if they're being regulated to do it, there's a reason behind that in terms of benefits to the sector, to society, to the environment, whatever it might be. So there's usually some direction that can be gleaned from the value that you're hoping to generate there. There's also, as Yiu-Shing's mentioned, before you publish data, you do have to risk assess it. And you have to consider, can that data be released as is, or do we need to do something to that data to make sure that we are being responsible and ethical and legal when we're publishing that data as well. So, I think what we've seen in a number of organizations and sectors is they tend to start with the low-hanging fruit, the data sets that are easiest to sort of get out there without too much trouble, without too much risk or concerns. And then it's also thinking about what is the potential value that an organization can envisage by publishing that data. And that might be at odds with the risk assessment, or it might be aligned. Where it's aligned, great, start off with those and then work through the other use cases until it becomes that risk assessment and that triaging process that you need to go through becomes more of a business as usual approach. And a lot of organizations, they will get FOI requests or EIR requests to see that data, and that's often quite a good use case to consider in terms of what data do people want? What are they asking for? Can we provide that? Can we create additional benefits here? Or what are the challenges that we're trying to solve and we need other organizations' help to do that? When it comes to innovation, it's better to have that diverse range of thinking that comes from people from different expertise, different backgrounds to you, to help come up with ideas and solutions to challenges that you've probably been trying to tackle for years. And so I saw someone put something in the chat around corporate concerns around company competitive advantage.
That was a question I was going to ask you, Tara. Yeah, but you addressed it, I think.
Yeah, but it's about the sort of the benefits and the costs of doing this work. So there's a classic example from a few years ago now. I'm based in London, so apologies for the London specific example, but Transport for London opened up all of the transport timetable data. They could have created their own app. They could have charged people for that app. They could have said, right, we're going to get this amount of income from that app every year. But they said, no, we're going to make that data open, and new companies can come in and innovate with that data. And that's, to this day, I think, saving Transport for London between 70 and 90 million pounds a year in efficiencies and savings that they have made. So there are often more benefits commercially as well as sort of societal benefits to publishing that data, then if you think back to my slide, hoarding that data, treating it as oil, which is not what we want people to do.
And we often find out, don't we, that the organization that's sharing the data is the one that benefits the most, because they're more likely to use that data set than anybody else, really.
There's a lot of silos that go on within an organization. They don't always know what data they have themselves.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right. They're often the biggest beneficiaries of doing this.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna take us back to the collaboration aspect then. I'm sort of keeping an eye on the questions. I think we've addressed quite a few of those. In terms of the collaboration aspect, I'll start with you, Melissa. What are the advantages you think of the water company working together on this compared to, say, working alone on open and shared data? What do you get from being part of that consortium?
Well, I mean, there's a hell of a lot of efficiencies by doing it together. A lot of different companies have different levels of maturity in the different aspects of data publication. So some might have really strong data governance processes in place, others might have good sort of data engineering practices in place and data architecture practices in place. And so actually by collaborating together, we're able to, as I go back to that statement about take what you need and give what you can, by adopting that philosophy as a group, we can get there further faster, because we are sharing what we know about preparing and publishing data, and that enables us to support each other in terms of building the capability as a sector, because if we can do that faster as a sector, we're likely to get more innovation into the sector, and that will benefit every company. So the competitive bit comes in what you do with that knowledge and insight once you've enabled it. So companies can choose to do something, or they can choose to not adopt something, or so that's really where it enables so much more innovation, and particularly when you're thinking about things which, say pollution events. Actually, I mean, contrary to popular belief, there aren't actually that many sort of pollution events that happen enough to be able to do some sort of complex analytics on it. But if you can pull the data from a number of different organizations, you've got a bigger data set to play with, which then enables more complex analytics to be undertaken by either the sector itself or by third parties offering services and products into the sector. So there are many benefits to doing it together, but not least of all building the foundational capability level, the maturity level of the sector as a whole. We will do that quicker if we do it together.
Yeah, great example there. Yiu-Shing, anything to add there?
Yeah, definitely agree that collaboration gets us there, gets us to the destination quicker. For the energy sector, it's been interesting. We've all sort of Ofgem's come out and said, go do this, but we've all sort of run off in different directions to figure out what the best way is. But we might have gone in a 360 direction, scattergun approach. But I think there are fast learnings, fast lessons, and fast fails as well. But hopefully we are all coming back into the same direction. And on that collaboration slide, we are talking through our, as an industry, about stuff on licensing, data sets that we will or will not release, risks. We discussed the government's given us direction as well. As open data matures, there's going to be an increasing focus on what can be shared openly and what has to be shared behind a door or a wall. So naturally, we're going to get more guardrails and guidance as maturity grows, and maybe new economic markets. One of the things that comes out from electricity data is sort of near real-time data, that people are taking that data to provide services for the electricity market. So electric vehicles being told not to charge during peak hours, but to charge at night time when no one's using the power network. Some economic benefits there.
Brilliant. Brilliant. We're in our last 5 minutes. I think we've kind of addressed most of the questions we've got there, either directly or indirectly. What do you hope to see in the next 12 months to 18 months? If we were sitting here in a year's time, what do you hope to see, and what do you need to do to help you achieve that? I'll start again with Melissa, if that's okay.
So I hope to have a whole raft of lovely use case stories to tell you about how value has been generated. We've got some exciting use cases coming up, so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those start to deliver value.
Yeah, and it'd be great to see actually the stories coming from users of the data rather than you as the
100%.
source of the data too.
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to the CEO of one company who's done exactly that this morning, just to say, you know, what did it mean for you? And if you were going to encourage people to publish data openly, what would you say to them? And what are the hard numbers? You know, what's the return on investment? How much did it cost for the company to publish that data? And what value is it actually generated to that company and to the sector as a whole? So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more of that.
Right. Tara, what's on your wish list in a year's time?
Well, completely echo Melissa's wishes. I'm looking forward to seeing those use cases, that demonstration of value coming through, because that's the reward, really. Going through that. You know, these things take time to set up and get going, and putting in place, you know, infrastructure to do this work, especially when you're working as a collaboration, and sort of making that data interoperable with common standards and so on. So there's a lot of effort that goes on at the beginning, and the momentum can seem quite slow. But I think once we have some of these things in place, and things can become more sort of business as usual, to see sort of a tidal wave of data coming out, and value being demonstrated, and evidence coming back.
Yeah, every aspect builds on every other aspect, doesn't it? So it's an incremental benefit. Yiu-Shing, what's your wish in 12 months' time? More of the same?
Pretty much, but to be different, maybe a changing step in terms of culture in the sector. Obviously,
Get some interference. Matt, can you mute, please? I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, sorry, Yiu-Shing, go on.
it's all right. I'll try and speak over it actually. But there's a step change in culture, really. Open data relies on a lot of maturity, a data culture. You know, take any organization, people moving away from paper, people taking data governance seriously, trying to establish ownership of who owns what, and data quality as well.
Yeah,
that's very important. People always talk about AI, but you know, you put in bad ingredients, you get a bad cake at the end of it. You need to put in good data, so you get a good cake at the end of it.
Yeah, it's a thought that's echoed quite widely within the BCS group, that you know, the fundamentals of data and data management don't change. It's just we're using it for additional use cases and additional benefits. So yeah, data quality is essential. Data governance is essential. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up there. Just remains me to say thank you very much for your attention. Thanks very much to Yiu-Shing. Thanks very much to Melissa. Thanks very much to Tara. And what I really liked about the event this afternoon is we've got a lot of collaboration going on right here in the chat. You know, people are sharing links, people are sharing, answering questions. And I would encourage everyone on the call here to, you know, get in touch via LinkedIn. Let's continue the conversation. And I just want to say thank you very much and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.